Now, you already know that how the oxygen is made available to our cells for the oxidation of the food. Once this oxygen is made available, it oxidizes our food molecules into carbon dioxide and water, and energy is released. This carbon dioxide is exhaled out, and the water is once again needed by our body, and the energy is stored in the form of the ATPs, or adenosine triphosphate, which is used for performing the different types of the functions. Now, this is not as simple as it sounds. It is a very complex process which takes place by the help of two processes called glycolysis and Krebs cycle. This glycolysis, it is that part of the respiration which does not need oxygen. It does not need oxygen, so it is the anaerobic phase of this respiration. It takes place in cytoplasm of the cells. And what happens during the glycolysis, it is a very complex process, so we need not to go deep in it. First of all, glucose, which undergoes the glycolysis in the cytoplasm. It is broken down finally into two molecules of the pyruvic acid. And then, if oxygen is present, then what happens? This pyruvic acid in mitochondria, it is then broken down into carbon dioxide and then water, and it releases then finally 38 ATP molecules. So what happens in the glycolysis? It's also called as the Embeden-Meyerhof-Parnas pathway. So it is the anaerobic phase of the respiration. A lesser amount of the energy is produced in the glycolysis. So what happens? First of all, the glucose is converted into glucose 6-phosphate by means of an enzyme called hexokinase. Then a series of reactions takes place, and by the help of enzymes, since it is a biochemical reaction, by the help of enzymes, finally this glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Now, these two molecules of pyruvic acid, they will enter into the Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle takes place in mitochondria, as all the enzymes needed in Krebs cycle are present on the cristae of mitochondria, as mitochondria is also called as the powerhouse of the cell, because ATPs are synthesized there during the electron transport chain. Now, this Krebs cycle, it was the series of the reactions. It was discovered by Sir Adolf Hans Krebs in 1936. He is a Nobel Prize winner also. So this is also called as TCA cycle, or tricarboxylic acid cycle. Because all the reactions, they take place in the cyclic form, so that's why it is also called as the TCA cycle, or citric acid cycle. In this Krebs cycle, first of all, the pyruvic acid, which was formed in the glycolysis, it is converted into acetyl coenzyme A. Then this acetyl coenzyme A, it reacts with oxaloacetic acid, and through a series of reactions, around 10 intermediate compounds are formed, and those intermediates, they are sent into the electron transport chain where the ATPs are synthesized. That is how the glycolysis and Krebs cycle takes place. But you should remember that in case of eukaryotic cells, only those cells which have mitochondria, the aerobic respiration will take place, or the aerobic phase, which is also called as the Krebs cycle. And in case of prokaryotes, those cells with mesosomes, there you can find the aerobic phase of the respiration, or Krebs cycle. Otherwise, those cells in eukaryotes which do not have mitochondria, there you cannot find aerobic phase of the respiration. So now we will see how this aerobic phase and anaerobic phase differs from each other, and what happens if we do not have oxygen, in absence of oxygen. Now, what happens during the absence of the oxygen? Sometimes during the vigorous physical exercises, our blood cannot supply oxygen to our muscle tissues. So what happens that time? We feel the scarcity of the oxygen, and the pyruvic acid molecules are converted into lactic acid, and this lactic acid is accumulated in our muscle cells, and we feel fatigued. Till the time lactic acid is not removed, we feel fatigued. So if we are doing some vigorous physical exercise, that time first of all, the glucose, by the process of glycolysis in cytoplasm, is converted into the two molecules of the pyruvic acid, and then since we do not have the sufficient amount of the oxygen because of the vigorous physical exercises, these pyruvic acid molecules, they are converted into lactic acid and two molecules of lactic acid and 2 molecules of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So, but here in some bacterial cells or in yeast cells, you can see the fermentation also takes place. The glucose, once it undergoes the process of glycolysis in the cytoplasm, then the 2 molecules of the pyruvic acid are formed, but they do not need oxygen, and in absence of oxygen, what these yeast cells do, they convert these pyruvic acid molecules into 2 molecules of the ethyl alcohol, C2H5OH, and 2 molecules of carbon dioxide and 2 molecules of ATP, or energy. So now I think you can differentiate between the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So all the organisms, living organisms, they do not need oxygen to get energy. You can see in yeast, it does not need oxygen to get energy from its food molecules. So some living organisms survive without the supply of oxygen also. Now you can differentiate between the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic means which takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic means that phase of respiration which takes place in the absence of oxygen, as you can see in the yeast cells where the pyruvic acid molecules are converted into ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. So a large amount of energy is produced during the aerobic respiration, but lesser amount of energy is produced during the anaerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, you can find the complete breakdown of the food molecules, but at the same time, during the anaerobic phase of the respiration, you can find the partial breakdown of the food. And here, the end products are carbon dioxide. In aerobic respiration, the end products, you can find carbon dioxide, water, and energy. But in case of the anaerobic respiration, you can find only lactic acid and ethyl alcohol. So one thing you should remember, that this aerobic respiration, it is the common phase between this glycolysis. Glycolysis is the common phase which takes place in aerobic respiration as well as in anaerobic respiration. Thank you very much. See you in another lecture.